Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session, a prologue on business agility. This session is centered on how leading utilities are changing their institutional culture, adopting change management principles, and making innovation investments, and forging community, regional, and industrial partnerships to increase business agility. I'm your moderator, and my name is Jason Scarlett. I'm the principal consultant at clean tech startup Beginnovate. I also serve as an industry advisor for Zpryme. Joining me today are Jeff Bailey, the VP of US Business and Consulting at CGI, Madi Weymouth, VP of Business Planning and Execution at CPS Energy, and Yenerim, Chief Data Officer at ENGIE. Jeff, I would like you to start us off with a quick rundown of your role in your company. Did we lose Jeff? Okay, Madi, could you go ahead and start us off?
I'm here.
Okay, there you go, Jeff.
Sorry. The virtual working environment. Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Bailey from CGI. Happy to be here at ETS, although I'd certainly rather be in Austin doing stuff, but we'll make this work. I guarantee you that CGI is probably one of the biggest global IT services firm that you've never heard of. And we do everything from management consulting, which is the group I lead in the US, including organizational agility, all the way through business process outsourcing and full IT outsourcing and everything in between. So that's me, and I'll pass it on.
Madi?
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. My name is Madi Weymouth. I'm currently the Vice President over Enterprise Business Planning and Execution Excellence. I work for CPS Energy, which is a municipality in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, and Cengiz.
Thank you, Jason. As mentioned in the intro, my name is Cengizhan, and I work for the North American arm of ENGIE. I think the best way to describe the organization I work for is to say that we are a world energy actor with the goal of achieving a carbon neutral economy. We do it in many ways through building and operating grid scale or distributed renewable infrastructure, as well as operating a number of service-based businesses to deliver customer-centric solutions. My role in the organization is basically to bring data and people together. Maybe I should say was, because I'm transitioning to a new role, but I think that's the best way to describe what I do in the scope of the discussion today. Happy to be part of the panel.
Great, thank you all. The first question is going to be for Cengiz. How do you view innovation and your role in supporting innovation?
So obviously, I mean, like a lot of people who are speaking through this week, I will probably echo something similar. Our industry is obviously undergoing, should I say, a profound transformation, and that's happening because of a number of things, climate change, social factors, etc. But most importantly, it's technology and innovation reshaping our way of life. And it so naturally affects the way we do business to the extent that it has been engraved in our culture. So collectively, I think at ENGIE, we have understood that it's impossible to resist change. And if we're not at the forefront of this transformation, that is an enormous threat to our business model and our business's existence, actually. So because of that, we view innovation as a very important pillar for our business. And that's why we have gone to great lengths to make it part of our culture and build a platform that actually supports it. I truly believe that innovation should not be in a person's title, nor its responsibility. It's the responsibility of a person or a group. You can only innovate as a company if everyone working in that company really sees innovation as part of their day-to-day responsibility. And it's very counterintuitive to the way that a utility actually operates. This is more how a technology company works. And that's also why I view my role to the question as more of an enabler rather than someone who is responsible for innovation. I need to basically enable our entire workforce through access to data, through access to simple or sophisticated tools to be able to deliver innovative solutions to our customers. And to that end, like I said, I mean, the more decentralized this culture is, the better it works. just to give you an example, we actually started our data program as actually a community of practice. So we initially had like 10 or 15 people volunteering their time to make data available in our organization and easily accessible within our organization. And actually only a very small percentage of these people were in IT. So this group over time grew into a much larger group, and without any kind of hierarchy. All they did basically was to come in and complain about what was hindering their way of doing business when it came to data. And we basically collectively tried to seek solutions to their problems that they brought up. And as we came up with these solutions, they basically then became ambassadors of what they have created. And they went ahead and internally tried to sell these solutions to their businesses in order to increase adoption and change the way the people do business in our organization.
Great. Madi, could you add to that?
Absolutely. You know, like Cengiz, we are in the midst of profound transformation because of the drivers he set forth. And culture plays a big role in that. People play probably the #1 role in terms of the driver. And in this situation, right, I've been in the utility industry for 18 years, and I've seen a huge transformation in what customers prefer and how we do business in the utility and energy industry. And so today, you know, the Amazons of the world are really challenging the status quo and have really set a new standard for how people, our customers and our community want to interact and how they want us to engage with them in terms of products and solutions and energy products. So a lot of it has to do with understanding, of course, the drivers, but people preferences and understanding demographics and understanding what's value to everyone because it's very different. On the inside of the utility, you know, to Jiggis's point, mindset matters. It's about having an innovative capability where everybody owns innovation and able to execute and innovate in their space, but also in the greater scale, right? Strategically speaking. So a lot of this has to do with leadership and having a strategy and really building capabilities over time to be effective and to provide those outcomes for value for our customers and community, but also make sure that, you know, we attract and retain our employees, right? Especially through this evolving landscape that we have around the workforce.
And Jeff, you have a very unique role being in the vendor community, doing consulting at multiple utility sites. Surely you must have seen some really kind of neat stuff that utilities are doing in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of exciting because we've sort of switched our thinking at CGI to not so much telling you how to do you know, how to instantiate innovation or how to be more transformative in your organization, to this mentality of how do I get unstuck from where I am? Because a lot of people sort of already know how to do it and are sort of doing it. But what we found was that they're not realizing where their blind spots are. They're not understanding the things that Madi just said, for instance, that, you know, you may be making IT investment after IT investment, but it may be something that you have a blind spot culturally or in your organization that's not allowing you to get to those results. And what are those things? And that's been, you know, very interesting. I think that, you know, one of the things that's most interesting about the pandemic for me is that for some utilities who, you know, we traditionally consider as laggards in the innovation space, even in some cases against their will, got bumped into the, you know, at least late adopters, maybe early adopters, if you think about the law of diffusion of innovation. And so it's very exciting to see them now thinking about, okay, how do I keep that within the organization? How do I institutionalize that now that I see that my people are resilient? And how do I keep doing that? How do I build on it and not fall back on pre-pandemic, you know, behaviors?
And I'd like to dig a little bit deeper about Madi. Well, all you guys have talked about, you know, kind of culture and, you know, new solutions Madi had mentioned. Can you tell us some stories about what's been successful as you've kind of tried to change that culture or roll out new solutions kind of in this innovation space? Who would like to take that first?
I'll go first here. I have a couple that I want to mention as an examples that I feel have been very effective at CPS Energy. One of them is something that Paula Williams, our president and CEO, established. Called the Action Enabled Strategy. And it really is a hybrid of putting together strategy and make it actionable, right? I think that execution is very important. Obviously, strategy is important, but executing on that strategy and making sure that it's effective and you have outcomes and you can measure them are is kind of the value. And around that model, what she has done is create almost like an agile lower A model where we engage all the different respective business units or capabilities that are going to be impacted. For example, do we have risk at the table? Do we have compliance at the table? Do we have financial services? All these different aspects to make sure that our strategy and our plan is comprehensive and we are not reactive to situations like risk. And so it has been very effective. It took some time to build the muscle around collaboration, remembering who to invite to the table to make early on. I think is one. The second one I will say is establishing a change management center of excellence. What that means is building a capability about getting people ready for change. And I call it people readiness deliberately because I think change management can mean different things for different people, but how do you get people ready for change? And so if we're in a high velocity of change industry and landscape right now, we want our people to be agile and be able to pivot through change. To your point, Jeff, right? We have proven we as humans are amazingly resilient. So we know that is a huge step in the right direction. Now that we know this, how do we now build our agility muscles so that we can then respond or be proactive and plan, but then also respond where needed. So those two, in my mind, have been very effective in keeping us more innovative, front and center in the changes that are coming.
Great. Cengiz, anything to add?
I mean, really great points raised by Mari, but like I said, I mean, in our approach, the more decentralized this culture is, the better it works. And maybe to add to what I said about community of practice, our approach did not work because we chose Microsoft over AWS, or we partnered with startup A instead of startup B. So one thing I think that was key is, one, you need executive leadership. Obviously, that doesn't mean you need executives telling you exactly what to do, but you need leaders believing in this transformation and are actually committed to break some stuff to find some solutions. You need the ambition for innovation in your culture. We actually ended up developing and delivering an operating philosophy committee, which is basically another community of practice to really adapt our culture and onboard our new employees to this culture. So it's basically all this innovation and transformation is basically being engraved in the DNA of the employee workforce that we have. Once your employees are believing or buying into this idea and they're becoming part of this entire roadmap, then things start to change on their own. It's not really picking different products or solutions compared to others. It's really having people or investing in people to actually deliver these outcomes. Because once you have this kind of approach, then things will start to change, and then you see success coming in on its own.
Great. Those are great points. I really strongly believe that, the ideas and innovations that come out of employees are so important, but first, it's not as important the idea itself, it's the process of having people comfortable in that culture to share those ideas and collaborate. And those are typically some of the first steps that I see successful utilities going through. So it's not always important to worry about, the quality of the ideas that are coming off, especially in a traditional utility hierarchical kind of environment. Bringing those people in and say, it's okay to bring up your ideas. It's okay to throw an idea out there and let other employees kind of share that idea and expand and improve on it. I think when you do that, the quality of ideas go up exponentially. There's not going to be that one person that's going to save the company. It's going to have to be all the employees doing that. So I really appreciate you guys bringing those examples up. I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about digital transformation, and particularly if you could share with us what were some of the main drivers for your organizations in pursuing digital transformation, and how are you, as you're implementing those programs, how are you dealing with the change that is being brought up with them? So maybe Cengiz, you could start with that.
So, well, I mean, like we initially said, obviously the industry is requiring us to, and the way that the improvements in technology and the improvements in innovation and how that affects our life is driving for us to make these changes in the way we operate. And we've noticed pretty quickly our traditional way of doing business, selling kilowatt hours basically to consumers, we've noticed that that was not going to go in the longer term. Because at the end of the day, the product that you're selling to the consumer does not have any intrinsic value for them. I mean, even people working in our industry does not actually know what a kilowatt hour is. So to be able to connect with the customer and understand what the outcomes that they're seeking, we need to basically engage with them in a little bit differently. And that required changes in our business model and changes of the underlying infrastructure that we use to engage with the customer. So we had to basically invest in ecosystems because, let me go back. So it's impossible, I think. We've understood very quickly that it's impossible for us to be experts on pretty much everything. There is no way we're going to be the best in class when it comes to, let's say, forecasting and customer engagement and demand response. It's impossible because there's always going to be two guys in their garage that are desperate to find a solution like that, and they're going to be doing it better than we can, despite our access to resources. So what we've decided to do was we need to come up with basically a platform, an ecosystem of some sort to bring these solutions and integrate them into our portfolio of solutions for our customers, and then engage the customers differently and basically make it work. So that has been our approach, and I think so far it's worked. I mean, maybe when in a few minutes I can go into the details of how we build that ecosystem. Yeah. But maybe others may add to that, and then I can jump onto that as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely table that ecosystem topic for a second, but I wanted to go to Jeff, just because what in your experience in dealing with multiple utilities, what are you seeing as the main drivers as they kind of adopt these digital transformation programs? And then we'll finish up with Madi.
Well, I think the drivers are all pretty much the same. I think that where we see a big difference is in the results. And so I think that if you take the things you hear Cengizhan and Madi saying, the one thing that you can't forget is that at some point you have to behave according to those beliefs. There has to be a method for, it doesn't matter so much to me how you choose to instantiate agile, whether that's, scaled agile, less Scrum, I don't care. When Madi talked about, lowercase agility, it's really about, do you carry through that intent, that strategy, those beliefs into how you actually perform the work? Because what we see in many occasions is people get the concepts, they understand organizational agility, they get the right people, and then they go, all right, let's go write our 10,000 requirements. And we go, oh no, you were so close. So if I could say anything, it's like, stop trying to solve 21st century challenges with 20th century methodologies. You got to revamp that, rethink it, so that your methods are actually encouraging the behavior. In fact, our mantra at CGI, when we do anything as we work with clients, is any method is only as good as the dialogue it generates. And if you're not generating the right dialogue, don't do it. Stop it. Try something else and move on.
Great. Madi?
Well said, Jeff. So it plays a big role, right? Digital transformation is happening. I don't, the drivers are just as Jeff and Cengiz mentioned, it's the how, right? How you plan and how you execute and how you measure. And that means bringing people along the journey, right? Inviting customers to the table to help understand what does digital transformation mean to them, or what do they need? And not even mentioning digital transformation, what is it that they need for their energy needs, and how do we meet them at the table based on their preferences? And again, back to the demographics, depending where you live, it's going to vary. So we really have to be connected to our customer and to our community. That is pivotal. I think that's first and foremost in any execution. And the second thing is employees. They do the work every day, but we also have to enable them and position them to have a safe environment, to your point, Jason, to have ideas, think outside the status quo and challenge the process and making it safe. So leadership, Cengiz, you mentioned this, you need strategic leadership to opine and to be active and visible sponsors consistently throughout the process, right? Not just saying the right things at the right time, but also supporting that kind of a culture throughout, multi-year transformation. That is so important. It's easier said than done. But to me, you need all those elements to be successful in any kind of transformation, because at the end of the day, it's about people and the value that they receive.
Great.
Maybe one thing I want to add to Mari's point, and it's actually quite a funny story, because a couple of years ago when we were trying to bring together data from different systems, and our goal was to basically build a tool for the customer, for them to be able to look at the sites that they operate for. It's a commercial and industrial customer, and we wanted them to be able to evaluate whether they want to install solar on their facility or put a battery or the energy efficiency, and what is the best way for them to achieve certain results. So initially we went back to our actual employees and asked them to, okay, if we were to build this, how should we approach this, and what do we need to add to this? And some ideas came out. It was all good. And then we actually we should have done that first, obviously, to Mari's point. We went to the customer and we called it the success of the customer. And then we asked them, look, we're trying to build a tool for you guys to basically decarbonize your consumption at the end of the day. And what do you think this thing should look like? And the responses we got from the customers were nowhere in line with what we've done so far, because their approach was quite different. The way they operate and the way what matters to them is usually quite different than what we think matters to them. And through that exercise, we found out that this thing that we were building should look completely different. And actually, that was basically our way of learning how customer engagement is super important. And without even going back to what Jeff said as well, listing the requirements, the first thing is give a blank sheet of paper to the customer, let them draw what they want to see. Then we're sophisticated companies. We can figure out how to feed the data to build what is it actually that they want. So that kind of customer engagement is super important for any kind of transformation to be successful.
Thanks, Cengiz. I'd like to come back to your ecosystem kind of comment earlier, and talk a little bit about the ecosystem you're leveraging, including your partners for transformation. I know historically we've, Jeff had mentioned those requirements documents, and I feel sorry, Jeff, 10 years ago I was writing those to your company, so mea culpa there. But maybe you could talk about even vendors, and then outside of the vendor community, what are you forming as an ecosystem to support your transformation efforts?
So for us, for the type of solutions that are interesting for our organization, the first thing we need to look for is whatever solution we're looking for, or whatever piece of the ecosystem we're looking for, it needs to be relevant to the business. When I say that, I mean that a group of people sitting on the driver's seat when we're delivering a tech solution should be on the business side. I don't think it should be IT people driving these projects. Because ultimately the business people, they know, the commercial people, they know how we deliver P&L, how we engage with the customers. So they have the best understanding of what outcome is needed from the tech solution. That kind of structure is key for adoption and for success. And once you have that principle, we have people that can support them on the tech side with whatever it is that we're building, whether it's predictive maintenance for our renewable facilities, whether it's forecasting, or whether it's detecting number of people in classrooms in a university so we can adjust HVAC or lighting. Some fancy things we do as well. Maybe I've oversimplified that we have enough people on to support on the tech side. So, and I think that's why we need an ecosystem there. So on the contrary, actually, to what most people think, like I said earlier, it's actually quite impossible for us as a company to compete with those two guys in their garage. Because they're desperate and they need to find something new. We cannot be experts in everything, and there will always be someone who will do forecasting better than we can. So obviously we partner with a lot of people. So we have a venture capital arm that invests in startups. We partner with universities, we partner with incubators, we partner with startups, other corporates like us to look for solutions that are relevant to our business. But what I want to stress here is I mean, it's obvious, right? We're not the only ones doing this. All utilities of all sizes, they do something similar. And every utility, one way or another, they do have these kind of strategies. The question is, why does it work for some and why does it not work for the others? And I think the answer to that, even though it's quite simple, it's actually something that's very simple, but it's something that's extremely difficult to master. It's called communication. As an enabler, the reason I think our way worked better was because we invested a significant amount of time and resources on a platform where people, and I mean a lot of people, internally could engage and exchange view on our external engagements. They shared their experiences, what worked, what hasn't worked, what could have worked, all that basically unstructured data living within that one platform, which we then used as a resource to work with our external partners to deliver better solutions. Because all of this thing is just simply too much for one person or one group to try to resolve just by themselves. So I think that kind of engagement, internal or external, is very important for success.
How about at CPS Energy? What are you guys doing?
So many things similar to what Cengiz mentioned. We've tried different things, from employee engagement type contest to bring in their ideas. I think we learned through the evolution of putting more structure and being more deliberate about what are the problems we're trying to solve, and then have employees engaged in that model. But we're doing more strategic things, right? We have partnerships like with Epicenter, who is an innovation hub, think tank that we partner with closely on introducing new opportunities for generation or any kind of T&D or gas type of solutions. We also partner with universities, right? The local community, making sure that there's partnerships throughout. So it's a very broad and vast ecosystem. You need, to Cengiz's point, as many minds at the table to bring creative solutions around energy. And so sometimes they come in different forms. And so if you foster that kind of culture and environment ecosystem where people know that you can come to the table and share, you'll have better success. Your success rate will be higher because you have more people, more brain power, if you will, participating. So that's an important aspect of that innovation ecosystem.
Great. And Jeff, I'd like to come to you, but with slightly different question, and it's around some of the challenges that you've seen utilities have in the ecosystem. So I'm sure you've played the traditional solution provider role, the consulting role, but maybe you could share a little bit about some of the challenges that these new types, and then we'll have the utility folks kind of come in with their perspectives. But I wanted to start with you on that one.
Yeah, it's like we're, at CGI, we're not immune to all the things that you're talking about, so it's especially difficult for, us as a system integrator, for instance, to come in and inculcate in all of our staff how important it is to play nice in the sandbox, meaning, nobody delivers, or brings a great idea to fruition in a silo any longer. That those times are long gone. So, it's about inclusion. It's about, being able to work with other vendors, with, multiple departments, it's exactly what Mari and Cengiz are saying. And if you don't come to the table, with that ability, it's not going to be successful. And so we've taken, gone to a lot of trouble to make sure that we as a company understand, and of course, as consultants, we have to make up big words, so we call it cognitive diversity. But it really is that notion that, the more you practice that diversity, and the more you include people that traditionally aren't included in the process, the quicker you get to the right answer and therefore the right business outcome. And that's a big mind shift for us. And so, but it's also, helped us in working with clients to say the way we do things now reflect those values and those tenets. And that therefore our success rates tend to be, higher, but that's how we think of it.
Okay. Cengiz, have you kind of encountered any sort of challenges in dealing with these new ecosystems? And also I wonder from the data perspective, from a data sharing perspective, are there any stories to tell there as you kind of shared, traditional utility data with some of these partners in the ecosystem and how that has helped?
So as the chief data officer, the biggest challenge was actually data, especially when it comes to access to external data. That has been one of our biggest challenges, especially when it comes to customer data and so on. And it's the way that the industry, as I think so far, has not really been up to par in terms of pace when it comes to technological improvements. Like we operate in, I'll expand that on a little bit. We operate in a number of different markets, and in each market we engage with a number of different utilities to extract customer data. And even though we have customers' actual consent for access to this data, the process for getting it at a good quality in a standardized way has been pretty much impossible. Some markets are better than others. I think in Texas we're far ahead than many other states, but still it's been one of our biggest challenges. And obviously once we have the data, cybersecurity is also another big I don't want to say problem, because I think we're dealing with that, but it's a big factor, I think, for us to really continue improving, because again, as a large company, the number of attacks we see is like exponentially growing. So how do you get access to data? And once you get it, how do you protect that data? I think that has been the biggest challenge so far for our business.
Okay, Madi, any challenges in supporting the ecosystem there at CPS?
Yeah, it's a conundrum, right? We want customers and community and myself, we want products and services that are up to par to the Amazons of the world, and we want that kind of digital interaction. But yet, we're skeptical, and our confidence is low around security of the data and how the data will be used, right? So you need both of them, and so that it's interesting. So we have some work to do, I think, that around building confidence and trust with our customers, and how are we managing the data? What are the things that we're doing to protect their data, and some of our policies and so forth, I think is a huge component to getting to the point where it becomes easier to do data exchanges. I think that's one. Number two is the maturity of a utility, right? Where they are with their data governance, and how they, pool their data and how integrated it is with other data sets. That matters too. You'd be pulling from 6 or 10 different data sets and pray for the best. I mean, that there's a maturity aspect to that as well. So I think that there's quite a bit of hurdles. I think we're maturing well, but there's still a lot of work to do in terms of those aspects. So I'm optimistic, because I see the accelerated approaches happening, and so I'm very optimistic that we will quickly be able to take advantage of the data. We've seen it successful in other industries, so there's no reason why utilities shouldn't be able to be as successful.
Okay, I think this next question is going to be for both Cengiz and Madi, and really kind of knowing that the audience, we're probably going to have some of these ecosystem players or future ecosystem players. Let us know a little bit about the types of solutions that you're most interested in supporting this digital transformation. So Cengiz, do you want to start out with that?
I mean, like I said earlier, the solutions that we look for, it needs to be relevant to the business. And we see our business are extremely dependent on how we engage with the customer. So two things: one, customer facing applications, and number two, infrastructure. So how can we extract more efficiency on the infrastructure that we operate? So that comes to like the wind assets, solar farms, battery storage, those kinds of things. How can we extract more value from these assets, and how can we offer them in a better way, in a digital way, to our customers? So those kinds of two areas are where we are focused in terms of technology solutions right now.
Okay, Madi, anything to add?
Yeah, I want to add, in addition to what Cengiz said, is really how employees work, our business model, right? How do we provide tools and solutions out in the field for them to be safer and more proactive with information for the customer, or doing the job in a different way, utilizing new technology for gas detection, et cetera, I think is really important. But also, how we do work in the office, right? The back office is another way that digitization plays a big role in efficiencies and quality and making sure that we comply with a lot of our regulations and such. So many opportunities there to make sure that we're touching on all these elements, and it's not necessarily linear, but constantly looking out to make sure that we are managing the risk and the compliance aspect of it.
Great. And final question, well, I actually have one more after this, but I want to compliment all of you. I think we actually made it about 25 minutes in before we said the word IT. So the last question, formal question, is going to be, have you seen measurable results from your IT investments? So Cengiz, can you lead us off on that?
Well, I mean, I'll give a short answer. So the answer is actually hidden in the question. So the answer, I think, is no, if you see these as IT investments. All of these investments should be viewed as business investments that have potential for increase in margin and should be evaluated as such. So they need to be business driven, tracked, and delivered, similar to how an infrastructure project is being delivered. So with these principles, yes, we've had many investments that had profound results. I think our results also show that as well. Obviously, for a utility, this is especially. We're not a traditional utility, especially our business in the US. But for a utility, that I know this is easier said than done, because in order to operate this way, we really need to change our way of working. The entire business model for the utility has to change. So what we've established here is we no longer actually have an IT team. We have DevOps, we have data, we have digital infrastructure, heads of products, cybersecurity, all these people sort of engraved on the business side, basically mining for information and trying to figure out how we can improve our tech infrastructure and products to produce better solutions for our customers.
And let's end with Jeff, actually, and then we'll get to the final question. Jeff, I know you've worked with many utilities on that. What are you seeing? Are there any themes out there that people are getting those results from their kind of digital investments that you guys are seeing at CGI?
Yeah, Jen just said it, and so has Madi. Is like any investment. I don't care whether you consider it a technology investment. It only pays off depending on how you work. So if you've managed to get your organization to a point where you're not always trying to predict and prepare for stuff, and rather you're able to sense and respond to the market or the customer or whatever it is, then that however you support that with technology, people, and process is a good investment. So the places where the investment, and it's not so much that the investment pays off, it's that the gap that we see is there's a lot of great ideas, a lot of great intent. There's low execution or really achieving that intent at scale. And so, my personal opinion is if you can achieve the intent at scale, it's because how you work and how you enable your people to work based on your investments in technology, people, and process. So I guess that would be maybe my convoluted answer.
Okay. So closing question for all of you. We've got about 4 more minutes left. What advice would you give that new executive that just got assigned to the utility transformation program? What sort of tips and tricks that you've learned over your time at your utilities and at your consulting firm? Madi, do you want to start that one?
Absolutely. From experience in many transformations, through doing a lot of smart grid implementations throughout the country, the number one thing I can say is, success, there's a lot, it's multifaceted. Number one is having active and visible sponsorship. Cengiz, you said it, when you have a huge transformation, especially if it's a digital transformation, you need the CEO and the executive leadership team behind that to understand that that's a top priority. And how do you make those investments and make the capacity to make it happen? You're going to have other competing things, but you have to make it one of the top things and make that commitment throughout the multi-year transformation. I think it's number two. Number two is really people readiness. I talked about making sure that you engage the impacted individuals, have the right people on the team, be very thoughtful about fostering the right culture around your team to be agile, lowercase a. and to deliver and plan and execute and measure. I think is one of the other important aspects of measuring the success that everyone agreed upon to make sure that we are realizing the value of the investment. And of course, part of the bringing the people back to the people is bringing in our employees and our customers and our partners to ensure that it's a comprehensive, very thoughtful investment to make sure that we optimize the value.
Okay, Cengiz?
Yeah, I'll have two advice, and it will seem a little bit of a repetition after Mari actually said these things, but one, don't view it as only your responsibility. You're obviously a big part of the puzzle, but you need the other pieces to deliver the full picture. And number two, invest in people, because cultural transformation is going to deliver results more so than your actual tech investments. So
Great. And Jeff, close us out.
No pressure. I would say my best advice is kind of the core tenets, and I call it a manifesto that we came up with when we started rethinking how we work with people. And they are these simple 5 things. First and foremost, generate dialogue that matters. I said that before, but people just don't talk to each other about the stuff that matters. We talk a lot about stuff that doesn't matter. The second thing is always remember that you're at your best when you co-create. There's just no doubt about it. I think the third thing is remember always be human-centered and empathetic in the things that you do. Fourth is always embrace that diversity in all aspects. And the last piece of advice is always make sure that you're able to adapt to your context. Don't white knuckle, the way it's always been done. And that'd probably be my best advice.
Great. Thank you for that advice. Thank you, speakers on the panel. And thank you for the audience for your attendance today. The next session is coming right up on customer engagement. So it should start for a few minutes. So be sure to stick around for that. And thank you for everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.